Welcome to this episode of the JIFS Flower Hour. We hope that you enjoy the show and that you'll come back and visit us next time.
Hi, I'm Craig Denecker. I'm the founder and the managing director of The Friendly Plant. We're a landscaping company. We're a turnkey service provider, so we do everything from the initial design work right the way through to the installation of the garden, which includes the planting of plants and building of different features, water features, pathways, patios, fire pits, pretty much anything garden orientated.
We are here at The Friendly Plant where we caught up with Craig Denecker. Hi Craig.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, and Craig was one of the original landscapers. He built a garden at our inaugural Johannesburg International Flower Show in 2019. We were all set.
Hard to believe it was so long ago.
It feels like
feels like a decade.
It does feel like a decade. And we were all set and ready to go for 2020. You were going to delight us again with another beautiful installation.
Someone pulled the handbrake.
Someone out there, I think a little bit further east than Ukuruleni pulled the handbrake on that one. Craig, now interestingly, you know, when we were out there putting together the flower show last year in 2019, you'd have to kind of sell the concept to landscapers, because it's obviously you're building this thing. There's a question mark, first time event. And in some cases where there was a bit of coercion involved. When I sat down with you here at your beautiful place out here in Mulder's Drift, there was very little coercion that I needed. You were on board almost immediately. What value did you see in the flower show?
Well, us, we don't really have shows that pertain to gardens and outdoors, yet we live in a country where, I could even say a continent, where gardens actually play a massive role in our lives. People enjoy leisure time in their gardens. South Africa, Joburg in particular, so many people with swimming pools in their gardens. That is an outdoor lifestyle. So it only makes sense that we have shows dedicated to the outdoors, and that gives an opportunity for people selling any products in that sort of sphere, as well as services like ours, where we beautify, we enhance, we create something worth spending time in. And I think that it filled a void. There were a couple of garden shows over the years, but they sort of diluted into other things, and then they eventually fall away. And while we have the shows that specifically cater for the home interiors, and they'll have TVs and rugs and furniture, the outdoors normally gets forgotten about. And I think it's worthwhile having a show that can showcase gardens. People can see what different aspects there are to gardens. You know, people normally think of it just as plants. They don't realize what you can put in a garden. We've designed everything from outdoor dance floors, outdoor bar areas, home spa areas, and then also obviously the normal sort of just planted garden with a small deck or water feature. But there's a hell of a lot that one can do. You can customize your garden to suit your specific lifestyle.
Yeah, and don't worry, we are going to be back with the Johannesburg International Flower Show, and we are going to put the work of people like you back on show to a bigger and better audience. You know, until 2021, people are going to have to look at their video screens. But so yeah, it's really great to see that you're enthusiastic about it. I know that you are an enthusiastic marketer. You've always marketed your business. You've in touch with technology. Now, even at our show last year, you're definitely the guy that uses a lot of technology, far more than most of the landscapers that I've come across. Tell us about your use of technology within your landscaping, your operating procedure.
Yeah. So, with a lot of our clients, when we've seen them, they think that the next day they're going to have a design in place, that it's a very quick turnaround. And the reality is there's a lot that happens behind the scenes. So once we've been to a site and we've taken our measurements, we've done our initial site drawings, and we've got a brief from the client, their wish list if you will, we then have to start working on a physical design. So it's kind of like architecture. If you are building a house, there's no way of knowing what the cost of the house is going to be or what it's going to look like without having a design in place. An architect doesn't have a 24-hour turnaround time neither do we. The design, even a small townhouse garden, can take 2 or 3 days, depending on the features that the client's looking for. That's of solid work, but in between we're doing site visits, we are doing, there's quite a bit of admin that takes place, and there's ultimately a queue of designs before that client. So it's less like a fire station where the bell goes off and someone's ready to run down, jump down the pole. We have to work through that workload. And then once we have taken all the site information, we then put that onto our CRM system. So we have all the client's details. We have try and use as much project management as we can within the CRM system to try and be as efficient as we can. But what we do is not an exact science. We can't tell you exactly how long it's going to take for us to install your garden. We have weather that plays a role. We've got supplier lead times in some cases. And if you were to go to a company that manufactures cold drink, they'll tell you to the millisecond how long it takes to make a can of cold drink. With us, we give you a more or less time, and ultimately we're not there to win a prize for being quick. The clients don't want to pay us extra for that privilege. So we've got to do our best rather than our quickest. And quick and good are very seldom in the same sphere.
Now, once you go through this process, obviously what you're not producing is what I have seen. It's an A4 piece of paper with a little sort of bush drawn in over there and a little path drawn in by hand.
Yeah, so it's weird in this day and age that so many people in our industry still use hand-drawn drawings. And granted, some of them look amazing. These people are proper artists. They can do a fantastic job, probably sell the picture as an art piece in itself. But the reality is, when you show a client their design, they are at some point in time there's going to be a change. Now you have to go back and redraw. Whereas if it's on a CAD system like what we use, we can make the changes far more quickly than if we had to go back and redraw the whole drawing. So what we do in terms of the design, all of our designs are drawn in CAD. Since day one, 2006 when we started, it's always been like that. We've never done hand-drawn drawings. And it allows us to do 3D walkthroughs with our clients. So when we do our handovers with our clients, we don't just send them an email with a PDF file. We invite them out to our farm. It's a 178,000 square meter plant farm. I started back in 1995 as a plant grower. So you can think of it as a plant factory. We produce plants, we supply to nurseries and landscapers, and we export all over Africa and up into the Middle East. So it's not a corner nursery. We're not open to the general public. But for our landscaping clients, we invite them through. We do a big screen presentation of their design. We have an A0 printer, so we can print massive plans of the designs as well, or massive prints of the designs. If there are any hardscape features like a fire pit or a entertainment space, we do a 3D walkthrough of that with them. And then we also do a display area with the plants that we've used in their design. So they really get almost like a test drive of the garden. It's easy. You go and buy a car, you get in the car, you smell the leather, play with the buttons, rev the engine, sign the check. Yeah. With us, it's not so easy. Even if you know your plants quite well, it's not an easy thing to visualize. And some people can visualize better than others. So for them, it's a little bit easier, but still, it's not a slam dunk. So for us, we try and get across as much as possible to the client, and then it's a very customized service. They might want to make changes, so then using the software rather than a hand-drawn design is much quicker to make those changes. And then we've also got custom written software that generates our quotes. So we had that developed based on our formulas that I've basically refined over the last sort of 15 odd years. Where they basically, once we've done the designs, we've got a team of designers, not just one designer, so we have to be able to work in a congruent, formal fashion that everyone's on the same page and everyone works in the same workflow. So that software basically takes the design and it quantifies all the different elements, all the different plants, whatever goes into the design. It adds a labor cost and installation cost, which is also dependent on a number of variables, like the distance to site. If it's a massive site, we might have more staff on site, the supervision and all that gets taken into account. So it's not sitting there with a calculator sort of trying to work out. That is largely automated, which also makes things go a lot quicker than otherwise would.
So as you can see, Craig definitely incorporates quite a bit of technology into the operation. That's fantastic. So you would imagine that a business like yours, you've got a big design team. I've been inside your offices, and they're sitting there working on. They see, look, whenever they see me, they certainly look like they're working hard.
No, they put a lot of energy into it. We make it look easy.
Yeah.
Clients really, it's very difficult to show a client what goes into doing their design,
Yes.
and the design that they see isn't the design. It's normally version 8 to 15. We've gone through so many zigs and zags to get to that point. You know, so it's a lot of work behind the scenes.
And so that immediately leads me to wonder, with a team like yours, where you've got a lot of people doing the design work and all of these systems running that you've explained to us, then you also have your people on site. This lockdown must have been really bad for you.
Yeah, so the economy wasn't in a great place to start with, and you know, the heyday was certainly long gone. And when the lockdown came, it was sort of, there were so many unknowns, and but we continued with our marketing, and we also have the advantage in that we've done design work for clients in 16 different countries and throughout South Africa, where a lot of those cases, I mean, we're talking about as far away as Ethiopia, the DRC, Angola, Zambia, all over the place. And there are quite a number of those places where we've never physically been to the site. So we've got a lot of experience designing remotely. So we used that in our lockdown time to keep our design team busy, so we could get new clients on board, in the hopes that if we were going to ever get out of lockdown, that we had something to a place of work to come to after that. And that worked quite well. We had clients that actually accepted installations during lockdown, which I didn't really think that would happen. And then as soon as lockdown finished, there was a sudden spike in demand, which was unforeseen. So just to backtrack a little bit, to start at the beginning, it's always a good place to start.
Help.
So one of the first social media posts that I put on in the first or second week of lockdown, I posted a picture of one of the gardens that we installed, which had a covered outdoor area right at the client's pool with a water feature into the pool, very serene, nice surrounds. And I made a comment underneath saying, you could be working from here. And the client whose installation that was, she came back and said, I am working from here. So when I saw that, I thought, yeah, this is what's happening. People who can work from home are. Some companies still haven't got all their people back. Some people have cancelled leases and said to people, as long as they keep up to certain targets, they can work from home. So your home becomes an environment, firstly, that you're now discovering for the first time. It's kind of like if you wash your car yourself and you haven't in ages, you start seeing the little design lines and detail that you take for granted when you're just running backwards and forwards driving all day. So with this, people are now sitting in their gardens. Or at some point in time you've got to leave the house and you're not allowed to go out in the street, so you say, well, go into my garden. And if you ask that person before, firstly, do you have a nice garden? Most people would say, yeah, my garden is fine. Then you say to them, do you spend weekends in your garden, outdoors and at home? And most people would have said, yeah, I spend my weekends at home. But they forget, weekends is shopping time, kids' school activities, it's going to this wedding, that bride, other people's houses. And realistically, people don't really spend that much time in the garden at home. Not as much as they thought they did. Now with the lockdown, it's forced people into that environment. And most people have realized that they haven't got the garden that they thought they had, and now if they're working from home, that environment's got to be that much better. So if you look at any hardware store, most of the home home product suppliers, even the furniture people, that you always see the parking lots are full at the moment, or ever since lockdown, and that's purely because people are now embracing that stay-at-home way of life, working from home, living at home. It's got to be a comfortable environment. It's got to suit your requirements aesthetically and practically. And so we had a massive uptake after lockdown, and then summer's normally our busy time of year. Or from spring it starts picking up, and it's a sort of, between having that sudden surge and summer at the same time, it just worked out really well for our industry. Even the nurseries, you see a lot of people that have never planted a plant before, and they're looking to see which colours look cool, and and in vegetables, people are busy cooking at home, so they're now looking more into the food that they're eating, and they're saying, but I don't just want a packet that's labelled tomatoes, I want a specific tomato. I'll buy an heirloom seed, or I'll find a seedling of that specific variety because I know it's good in salad, or I know it's good for pasta sauces. So that whole, it's become a whole new animal, that whole home vibe.
Well, that's fantastic, and I'm really glad that you have caught this wave. And I'm sure there's many people that are joining us today that can look around, working from home, getting a bit more in touch with the house. It certainly happened to me, that you look around and you say it's time for a bit of an upgrade. If you think you have an upgrade, here's a man to speak to.
Yeah.
Get hold of Craig at the Friendly Plant.
And another thing that we didn't really foresee is that with the lockdown, multiple levels of lockdown, people haven't been going on holidays, and they haven't been wining and dining as they would have. So they suddenly, those people that are still working from home, getting their full salary, suddenly find that they've got money in their bank account that they otherwise wouldn't have had, and rather than spending it on something that's very much an expense, they're now investing it in their garden, which of course helps their appreciation of their home values, and more importantly is the way that they use their house. It enhances their lifestyle, because that's the most important thing. Money you can always earn again. If you lose, you can always at some point make it up, but the time that you've got here, you don't know how much you've been allocated, and if you spend it in a nice area that you actually enjoying the property, what better way to spend your money?
Well, if you've got any spare money, keep it for the Johannesburg International Flower Show 2021, because you're going to come there and have a great time. So, Craig, we understand that you've been nice and busy, and this is great to see. You also mentioned earlier that you supply much of your work from your farm over here in Mulder's Drift. I think it's time that you showed us around. We go and have a look at some of those plants.
Yeah, we can absolutely take a walk around.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Craig, this is quite impressive. I mean, this is really a big nursery that you've got. You've got all kinds of plants and flowers in here. How big is this area?
We've got a few acres under shade, and the whole farm is just under 180,000 square meters.
Wow.
So it's quite a lot to look after.
That's impressive, and your team's working hard. They're busy getting ready to go out to site. This is really beautiful. Now, we were on our walk, we were discussing indigenous versus water-wise, and you've got some strong views.
Yeah, indigenous basically means that a plant comes within a man-made a border defined by man. If there were different political border, if there were different wars, there'd be different lines on our maps of modern day. So the thing that's more important, if you're in a game reserve or something like that, where you're trying to conform to the aesthetic of the surrounds, the natural surrounds, then yes, it makes a difference in terms of using endemic, not indigenous. You're not going to find an arum lily up in the middle of the Karoo, for example. Yes. So it doesn't help that it's indigenous. It doesn't really matter. What's more important is that it fits the surroundings. And if you're looking for a water-wise plant, it's the most beneficial because you're conserving in terms of your water usage, and never mind the financial aspect, and water is never going to get cheaper, and there's a lot of processing involved. But if you conform to what they call xeriscaping, it's basically plants that are almost self-maintaining because they are acclimatized to the positions that they're in, or the area that they're in, so they don't really require any additional watering other than what the skies provide, and the temperature, the climate is suited to that plant. That's ultimately the sort of lowest impact gardening that you can do. So for me, indigenous is I think a term that's mostly misunderstood. If you're in Johannesburg and a plant comes from Gaborone in Botswana, it's a 4-hour drive, and that's not indigenous. So people will say, oh no, but it's not indigenous. But a plant that comes from Cape Town, which is 1,100 kilometers away, because it's within a man-made border with people that have South African passports, somehow it's not a thing that makes sense to me. But yes. Water-wise is generally a trend as well for many years, and I don't think it's ever going to go away. And it also means that it's a lower watering requirement, lower cost, better for the environment, that you're not wasting water that could be used to give to people, for example. And ultimately, it tends to be a lower maintenance aspect. If you've got a water-wise garden, it should be a lower maintenance garden. You don't have to worry about irrigation systems and all the maintenance that goes with that.
Yeah. Now, walking through your undercover nursery over here, I've discovered something that I absolutely love, and it sounds like it was just your plan to make a path, and you're using all of the paving. Just tell us the story.
So, because we're on such a big place, I mean, we're talking about thousands of square meters of pathways through the plants that you can access, because you've got to be able to put the new plants down when we produce the plants, as well as we need access to pick them up when they sold to a nursery or they go out to a landscaping site. So you need the access. And the one problem is that if you don't have some kind of a paved area, the trolleys and things that we use to get around get bogged up in the mud. The other thing is the cost of paving this kind of square meterage is just not viable. We also have sites that we work on where we're upgrading pool areas, for example, and we take out old paving, driveways, we take out the old paving. So what we did was we use all those broken, used tiles and bricks, and we essentially use it for two things. One is we train up our staff using those products at the farm, and in doing that we also paved those previously muddy areas, and it actually gives a very nice look. It's very eclectic style, but it looks lovely, and that material would otherwise be sitting in a dump somewhere, filling a landfill.
Well, I've got to say, if everyone is looking for another new idea, try Craig's mishmash of paving. Yeah, it looks
if you see your neighbour getting new paving, get the old stuff out, and you can make it happen.
Well, Craig, I want to thank you so much for spending the day with us. I'm sure everybody joining us for the Flower Hour will have got great value out of this. And we look forward to seeing you at the next live Johannesburg International Flower Show.
No, thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. Thanks for having us on. Thanks.
Cheers.